Hello everyone, and welcome to Geotab online training. Thanks for joining us today for Tuesday's talk. This is Carrie Carter, and today's session is on default reports in MyGeotab. I'm going to walk you through a slide deck to show you the default reports we have currently, what they are used for, along with identifying how you can customize them and utilize the data that's in there. The slide deck I'm using will be available on MyAdmin. It's really a great quick reference for you to be able to identify where you find it, what it's used for, some of its key references. All right, and with that, I'm going to get going, and we're going to start off. So I'm going to walk right through this list here and show you all 30 default reports. All right, I'm going to start off right here with the trip history report. The data that we have is the stop location, the stop time, the idle duration. You can also see off to the side there kind of a trip history that you see, your breadcrumb trail. As you hover over this area here, it will show you more information. This is a list within the trips detail report, so it shows you right on your screen. You also always have the option of going into a report or the advanced, and that's always available. You can export it to Excel. Its use is to show historic tracking, to examine trip information for a previous date. And depending on the options you choose, it will always adjust. All right, this is a summary report. It shows you a summary of the trip information of all of your fleet. So for example, here I have 4 different vehicles listed. I have the PC Hyundai, the AM Go 7, and so on. Within that, it shows me the number of miles driven. So it's gone for 7 minutes, 7 seconds of idling, which is an important little thing here. It also talks right here about the non-customer duration and how long they were there, which is 11 hours, 16 minutes, and 34 seconds. We get right into the details. If I take a look right now at AM Go 7, again, it shows me your basic summary of information for that vehicle, and it would list your entire fleet right down here. This is a great way to see an overview of the entire fleet. I'm going to take a look at the trip history later so that we can see what it actually looks like inside the UI, and we'll see what kinds of things are in the data tab that we may not have seen in the trips history report. A basic vehicle report. What is it used for? Let's see what's in your fleet. So it shows you some basic overview of your vehicle, what the vehicle name is, or your device number, however you want it shown up here. Any comments that you have with it, if you have the license plate, it's a manual type in your license plate. Your VIN number will show up here. The odometer reading is there, and the type of device that it is. Keep in mind that just because this is what we see in the report, this is not all the information that you can get off of it. This is just the default that's set. The device install history report. This is great to find out what's going on with the device. If I take a look at the first one right there, I can actually see that it was installed into a vehicle twice on the same day. Probably put in, pulled out, and put back in again. You can see that the statuses are okay, which means everything went through okay, it connected properly. On the second one, you can see that there was 3 on June the 20th at different times there. So that it was probably installed, pulled out of the same vehicle. And again, the record type, which is an installation record, and the status to say that it's okay. So where this works, not only that you can monitor your install progress, but you can also make sure that there isn't anything being pulled out and put back in again, and you can really see the history of the device. A user report. You can pull this at any time to find out what users are logged into the database, what users have access to the database, and what group that they might be a part of. If you're walking into a database and it has already been set up and you need to kind of identify who has access to it, this is a great report for you to pull. A zones report, it is just that. It shows you the zones. Down the left-hand side, it identifies the zones. It tells you whether it's a customer zone, a home zone. It will also tell you if it's an office zone, whatever zone type is there. It will also tell you that the group that it is a part of, which is second on the list there. Really basic, but it does list all of your zones so you can identify that you have all of them. Customer visits report. It's also known as a zones report. We call it per se a customer visits, but what it does is identifies all zones that have been landed on, if you will, or driven to, and all of the visits that you've gone through in that zone. It allows you to see the display basically of how long your vehicle spends at each location and identifies the opportunity to really increase your productivity. Time of arrival, the duration that they were there, the departure time, tells you for each vehicle you have listed, and it would be based on the options that you have set within the setup itself. All right, inside your groups report. This is one that could be used if you need to get familiar with the database that already exists and you want to see how the setup is. It will tell you all of the groups that are already identified here, any comments, and who the parent or what the parent is of that group. For example, corporate vehicle, who it might be owned by, and the vehicle type, and so on. All right, inside your risk management report, basically what you have inside the risk management report is a summary of all of the vehicles, but a detail of each vehicle as it sits. Depending on the options that you've chosen for your time frame, it will identify exactly the distance that's driven, the idle time, how much time was idled over 5 minutes, your after-hours trips set up for your work hours, any of your speed limits that were over the thresholds, any exception events that have occurred, which means you have your hard acceleration, harsh braking, harsh cornering in that particular case, what we have set up. And then you also have your stop counts of being under 10, greater than 10, and so on. So what it does here is it identifies, again, based on the options you have set, a detail of each vehicle in a summary format. It's a great way to look at a fleet as an overview, and you can go into detail if needed. All right, your congregation report. This is a great little report that shows you when drivers tend to congregate together within a certain mileage area within the proximity that you have set. That is something that can be set. This can be used. We have some customers that will actually use it, and they can see that, every morning their drivers stop at McDonald's together. That's fine. They have no problem with it. However, it can also be used if you're trying to identify when drivers might be congregating and they shouldn't be. So it can be used whichever way you want it, but you can certainly see it's automatically set so that if the vehicles come within a certain proximity, it will show you up on the report. All right, inside you have your time card report, and what this is used for is it will record your accurate work hours of a vehicle to make it easier to kind of show you your productivity and what is being properly recorded. The identification of the vehicle utilization and assists in the vehicle assignment. So really it goes through everything that you need to know for a time card because it shows you the ignition at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. So it's a great one to be able to cross-reference if you need to, but really show you an overview of what's going on with your whole fleet. All right, IFTA reporting. Some of you may need it, some of you may not. Just to let you know what it is, it's when you go across state lines, across provincial lines, it will identify it by state or province, and it will show you the enter odometer and the exit odometer and the total for each state. And the reason for this is because for IFTA reporting, or what it's also used for is apportioned plates, it will show you the total amount driven in each state, so it can then be used for the actual IFTA reporting. It is not the actual filing that is done, but it certainly helps not only on the reporting end, it also helps the drivers because they don't need to stop and put in their odometer, or worse yet, trying to drive and write the odometer down at the same time. So it's a great little feature here that we've got set up for you already so that there's no adjustments that need to be made, and it will automatically set up. It's not set up in chronological order by time, it's set up by state, so it makes it easier for you to identify. All right, a speed profile report. This is a kind of a neat little graphical view of what the speed looks like. All right, a note on this, you have two different types of lines here. These are your posted road speeds. If you have a dotted line, which you can see on the first part here, your dotted line is identified as an estimated posted road speed. Okay, if it is estimated, it shows up as a dotted line, and the reason for that is because we're saying, you know what, based on our mapping programs, which is NavTech and OpenStreetMaps, we cannot confirm that this is the actual posted road speed. If you don't want posted road speed to show up as a rule, then you just choose that in the rules area to not include estimated posted road speed so that they wouldn't get broken. All right, then we go on to our engine faults summary report. This is a great way to look at your fleet, say on a weekly basis, monthly basis, whatever you have chosen, but it will allow you to see a summary of the faults, and it allows you to say, okay, you know what, 8C Go 7 Raj has 21 faults. You know what, I need to go look at those faults and see what they're all about. That's a lot of faults, even one or two. If you want to identify it, you need to go in and look at them. This is the type of report that you can have sent to you, once a week, and then you can identify, hey, there's a fault, I need to go look at it. I wouldn't suggest on the next part the detail to be sent to everyone. You would send a summary report and then dig into the detail based on the fault that you see right here. So here's the detailed report that goes along with it. Now, here we're looking at a vehicle which is DM Go 7 Beta, and it actually tells you every single fault that shows up for that vehicle. So here is your detail. Our engine measurements report. The engine measurements report is very similar to the log data, if you will. It's going to come up and show you all of the measurements that we get off of the engine as we get them. For example, if I look at the cranking voltage, as you turn on your vehicle, you always have that cranking voltage. We have it set so that if it goes above or below a certain threshold, it will automatically show you, and that's what that voltage is all about. Another example might be if it was to show that the battery voltage was low. We have a threshold of 9, so if it drops below 9, it would show up here to say that it is below 9, and it will report it as soon as it happens. It's not a time slice, it's actually event-based, so if it reports it as being below that threshold, it's going to show up right here. All right, this is a neat one here. This is called the fuel usage report. It will show you an overview as you see it here based on your fleet. It shows you the distance that you've driven within the time frame you've chosen. It shows you the fuel used, whether that be in gallons or in liters. If you're in gallons, it shows you your miles per gallon. If you're in liters, it would show you kilometers per 100 liters. It also shows you the time, and it will list it for each one of the vehicles. So again, it gives you an overview of the amount of fuel used for the selected time period that you have set. Our fill-ups report, this is a great report. This actually works with your fill-ups that you have done within the vehicle. It will actually check on most vehicles that are 2010 and newer. It usually shows us a fill-up, and you will see it right here where it is filled up on the graph, and it shoots back up again, and within that time frame. All right, so let's take a look at the second one here. On October the 7th at BP Fuel, and in case you're not familiar with it, this is actually a zone that has been set up, and I can see that because it's underlined and it has a color code to it. 19 miles per gallon were used between one fill up to the next. It was filled up with 11 gallons, and this is the current odometer. Keep in mind also that this is beta. It will remain beta at this point, and the reason for it is because we're always getting new fuel information constantly from vehicles, so this is really a rotation. It's constantly moving. We get better at our fuel, and we always add to it. All right, now we have maintenance reminders. This is a great report to send out, I'll say once a week, to let you know that these things are due and when they're due. And you can find out based on what you have set up for your maintenance reminders. We can have, here we have test engine hours. The event is overdue by 2 engine hours. So we can set up these maintenance reminders by the engine hours. We can set them up by the miles, or we can set them up by a date. This is the default one that we have set that we can send out to anyone as a report, and then they can use it in order to maintain their fleet. All right, a maintenance history report, similar to the setup. Now we have it in history to tell you these are the vehicles that it was done to, what was done to it, and when. And you can see basically your dates, your calculated odometer, if it has been adjusted, the engine hours that have been set. Just a note on engine hours, any small fleet doesn't actually show engine hours through the ECM. So the engine hours that you actually see in the Vehicles tab is the number of hours that the device has been plugged in. All right, our message report. This currently works with Garmin, but in the future it will work with any device that will accept a message and send a message to it. It is inside Zones and Messages. It is a way to record the two-way text messaging sent to and from the software, meaning MyGeotab, and the device. And you can see here that the messages are South Common Mall to Geotab, who it was sent to and from, and when it was sent. In this one right here, you can see where it's yellow. It says it was actually delivered. So you can basically see an overview of everything that's going on within the messages. This is also how you delete them, or you can go backwards with it. Again, as I said, this is for Garmin only at this point, but that doesn't mean in the future that we won't have it set up for other devices. The exceptions report summary. This is used to provide a summary of the rules that were broken by each vehicle. As we know, we have rules that we have set up, and based on those rules, when the rule is broken, it throws an exception. So this is a summary report. This is a great report to look at just that, as a summary, and then if you need to go into detail of one, you can do that on the next step. This is the type of report, again, that is great to be able to send to someone once a week, so that you can see what rules have been broken and what needs to be done about it. So you can really identify that just as a summary, and then you can look into detail as you need to. So the exceptions detail report is just that. It's showing you the detail of what those exceptions are. In this particular case, it's AM Dodge Caravan and AM Nissan Rogue and AS with the Go 7 Mobileye. And basically what the location is, it shows you the details and what the broken rule is. In this particular case, it is speeding in all cases. The time that it happened, the duration it happened, and the distance. Based on the rule that is set, it's going to obviously just accommodate that. All right, the log details or the accident report, this is actually similar, looks a little different, but it's showing you the same information or similar to as the engine measurements report that we looked at before. As the engine gets information, it will report through to the log details. It is also how you would create your accident report because it has second-by-second information based on whether it recognizes an accident or not, and you can create an accident reconstruction right from these logs. There are a lot of logs per day, per vehicle. If a vehicle, I've seen it before, if a vehicle is driving 9 to 5, you can see 5,000 logs. It is identifying, as I mentioned, cranking voltage, battery voltage, things that we have here like odometer reading. It is fuel used while you were idling. That's something that that particular vehicle actually sends through and tells us. So we are going to record it. It's all in there as it happens. All right, the audit log report. This report is great for you to identify who has been into the database, who has done what in the database if you're trying to figure out what's going on, what's happening with it. It basically records everything that has gone on within the database. Okay, it tracks changes. And when multiple users have administrative access, it allows you to monitor that. If you use Geotab Drive, there's some more added reports here that we have by default, which is the DVIR report. It will show you, based on the options that you choose within the reporting system itself, the information based of the DVIR. Okay, so what we have here is whether they're open or closed, whether they've been approved or not. I can actually see some of them are still open, but it will list all of them in a report form. All right, your HOS duty status log report. This shows up, in this particular case, this is on the screen. What it shows you here, based on your options that you choose within the date frame, it tells you about the person that you've chosen and all of the duty statuses. So we have off, on, drive. This is a violation that shows up. The check marks mean they have been verified. If there's no check mark, it has not been verified. Just for reference, only verified logs show up in the compliance print, which is something that you all have to have on-site at your location head office. All right, the HOS violations report. This also shows you part of your Geotab drive, any violations that have happened within the time frame you choose in the options. All right, last part here is the planned versus actual route report. And what it allows you to see when you're working with routes, it allows you to see that if you have a planned route set up, and then you are going to take a look at it compared to the actual route, it will show you which stops were either unexpected or part of the planned route. So you can see the unexpected stops right here are in red, and part of the planned route will show up right underneath it or right in line as it goes through the stops. You can also see here that it shows that it's missed, what the time frame was, your hours, your miles, and your minutes. All right, what that shows you is that last piece there, just so that makes sense here, is your actual driving duration in order to get to that stop. All right, a couple of things that I want to comment on here is, as far as trending reports goes, these are not part of standard reports, but they are ones that are great added features. We do have them available to you. They will be up, if they're not yet, by the end of the week on the report repository on the website. They are a great added thing, really, to be able to see how your fleet looks. It gives you a quick snapshot of how things are going. We're looking at the idle trending. Sometimes that happens as the weather gets colder. Our idling goes up. I think it's normal in colder climates anyways. The total miles for the previous 3 months, it shows you how that's looking, how many miles were driven, and the total fuel used over the last 3 months. Often those two go in line together because your fuel used is going to work with your miles driven. But again, it gives you a history, it gives you a quick snapshot of how the fleet looks. To talk here about your report customization, and we looked at this report before, so it's the same one. It is the default risk management report. And based on this, which is just, again, you just choose your standard risk management report and your options that go along with it for your dates. But based on this report, I can do all kinds of other things with it. Many of you are probably familiar. You could customize any standard report we've just seen, but you can get into great detail. In this particular case, we took that standard risk management report and made it into a driver scorecard. So we took all of the standard stuff that's on that risk management report, customized it in here, and said, you know what, this is what we need to see as far as how our drivers are doing, and this is the information we want to know about and how we weight it. Again, this driver scorecard is not available on the repository yet. It will be. We do have some default ones that are also available in the UI. So you have your choice here, but you can always customize it however you want it. For example, if you decide that you don't want harsh cornering at 20%, you only want it at 10%, take that 10% and make it somewhere else, maybe 20% on seatbelt. So you can adjust this any way you want as long as you come out at 100%. All right, so that pretty much gives you an overview of what our default reports are. Now I want to spend a couple of minutes and just take a look inside my Geotab. Take a look at a couple of the reports so that you can actually see other things that you might be able to get even though you don't see them on the report. All right, so let's take a look at vehicles. It's a simple one. I just have a basic ABC company listed up here. It is a small database. It just has 5 vehicles in it. All right, inside my view is where I'm going to find all of my reports for vehicles. Again, keep in mind, for those of you that are new users, we don't have a reports area. What we have is all of the areas have reports in them. So if it's in vehicles, if it's in activities, if it's in engine and maintenance, that's where your reports will be found for each one, which is why inside right here, it actually tells you the location of any one of the reports. Okay, so that's a very handy little tool to have. As I said, those slides will be available to you. All right, so let's take a look here inside our vehicles. If I click on View, I have 3 options at the top I want to comment on. The list view is what you see on your screen right now. That list is the UI. That is how it's displayed right on screen. Then we have 2 others, which are Report. It's a basic report. It shows you some of the information that we have listed on the vehicles. And then we have Advanced, which shows you everything that we can get based on the vehicle. All right, I'm going to choose Advanced here. And as I click on it, it's going to open it up in the UI, and I want to show it to you here. As you can see, that's way too small to read. It's too small for me. I'm not sure how you're seeing it on your screen, but I know it's too small for me. So I'm going to flip it out to Excel just by pressing on the Excel button here. And I will open it up, put it on my desktop. Okay, so based on this device report, this is the device, the group that it belongs to, the current driver that there is, the current activity that was happening as I ran the report. If there was a vehicle driving, it would show you it's driving there. What its last stop address is. Notice the red right here. The reason it's red is because it is a known zone. It has been identified as one. The last stop zone type, and this particular one is set up in two different areas here, both a customer zone and an office zone. The current odometer, the current engine hours. Keep in mind, if this is a small light-duty vehicle, it is the engine hours that we have since the device has been plugged in. So you can see there's all kinds of information here. Active from, active to, if it's historic or if it's live. The firmware version, this is another great added feature. If you're trying to figure out what firmware is on a device, you can take a look right inside the vehicle list and it will show it to you here. The serial number, which is the Geotab serial number, important identifier that we use all the time. The license plate, if it has been manually entered, it will show up here. The VIN, if we get it, in most vehicles 2008 and newer, we get the VIN. If we don't, let us know. We'll see if we can find it. Okay, the time zone that is set. I'm not going to run through absolutely everything that's on here, but you can see what is listed there. If I take a look, most of you may be familiar with it, but I'm just going to take a second and go unhide our one tab here. It is the Data tab, and the Data tab is the default or all of the information that I can get from the vehicle within this report. I may not have it showing on my screen within the Report tab, but it is absolutely everything that comes from the database into Excel in the report. Okay, so I'm going to open that up. And what we have here is very similar to what we saw in the report, but not in a very nice format. It is the raw data, as I said, that we get from the database itself. All right, the device name, the ID is not something that you use normally, but it is something that we use inside MyGeotab in the back end of things in order to identify some vehicles. It isn't something that we need to report on. It isn't something you need to know about. We need it, so we keep it there. All right, we also have the device group. You saw it. We actually use it inside the report. Then we also have the driver name. The device plan that is associated to the device, that's a great way to find out what the device plan is. Again, it wasn't part of the report, but it is in here if you need it. You can put it into the report and make it a new one, so then it becomes a customized report. All right, again, if it's stopped, it will give you the device details, the zone types, and so on. So there's more information in the Data tab than what is often reported in either the Report tab or the Summary tab. If you are looking for something, you can come into the Data tab and see what else is there. All right, I'm going to take a look now inside the trips history report to show you again something that is identifiable to many people that you don't realize it's there unless you go looking for it. All right, inside your map, and if I take a look inside my trip history, and I'm going to select one vehicle here, and I want to take a look and view, and I'm going to go into let's say the report this time. Basically what it is a basic report, just certain little fields that we've thought might be a basic report that you might need. It's not to say, as I said, that it can't be changed. It's just a basic. So I'm going to choose Report. And as you can see this time when I see it on my screen, I can actually read it. If you remember in the vehicles list, I could not read it because so much information was showing up. So this is a smaller version of it. I'm going to export it again out to Excel. Your version of Excel may not look the same here. That's okay. It's still Excel. Not much has changed on it. It still does the same thing. All right. Down at the bottom here, again, this shows just some basic pieces of information on the trip history. It tells me the vehicle, if there was a driver, the trip started and ended, its distance, max speed, driving duration. idling duration, and the stop duration. Let's take a look inside the Data tab. I'm going to unhide the tab. There is also a Summary tab there, but I'm not going to look at that at the moment. I'm just going to go into the Data tab. Open it up. There is all kinds of other information in here. All right. For example, we did not see the location. It is listed here. I'm going to scroll across and you're going to see all of the information that's in here. There's quite a bit of it. All right, one thing I want to comment on right here, it actually shows you the beginning odometer amount. So that actually piece of information is not on the trip detail report, but it is available to you if you need it. So you can create your report or customize the default report, make it your own if you need the odometer at the start. Very easy to be able to identify it at the start time, to take the next start time and see how far the distance was. All right, some other identifiers here that I just want to comment on. We're not going to go into great detail here, but we have exception rules that are also set up. That is not part of trip history, but you can actually make it part of your customized report if you want to. So your Data tab is very important to know what else you can get as far as information goes from this report. The only limitation that we have between reports is just that if it shows up in the trip history report and not in, I'll say, the vehicle report, you can't combine those two reports together. Not through the UI. You can certainly do it through the SDK, and you can then merge those two pieces of data. So the only limitation, as I say, is getting information from two different total reports, that it's not in both. All right, so if I look back at that report, as I said, this is very simple. It's easy to identify. It tells you the time it was created and the to and the from times, which was just today's date. The measurements are in kilometers, and the speed is obviously in kilometers per hour, and the total number of identifiers there. It's a basic report, but I can change it to add odometer if I wanted to. Or I can change it to add the address if I wanted to. Anything that's on this Data tab, I can customize it by adding it to this report. All right, let me take a look for a second, and we're going to go into the view accidents and log data. Just because we talked about it before in the deck, I just want to show it to you. Let's say for today, I'm going to take a look at one vehicle, which would be this one, and I'm going to apply changes. This was one drive, about 10 minutes, and it is 528 logs. So really, it's showing me every piece of information that it is reporting on. You can see how long the list goes. If I have any faults, they would show up in red. It shows me here that I have a high voltage while ignition is off. If I wanted to look into that, I certainly could, but that it's just reporting everything. Here's a cranking voltage. It's reporting everything as it sees it with the time right beside it. Not something that you would normally run every day on every vehicle, but it's certainly there if you need it. It is, as mentioned, used for the accident reconstruction because it gives you second-by-second data if it needs to. So that's the type of thing what the log details is used for, and as I said, it identifies absolutely everything that the engine is reporting through. All right, one more thing that I wanted to take you into was the HOS. We have the duty status logs as well as violations, and I did mention it to you in the deck. We also have one other one here, which is called the availability report. This is not released yet. It will be released shortly. And if you want to use it, you can get it by choosing your preview features inside the user. As you being the user, you just click off that preview features and you will get that availability report as well. All right, if I take a look inside the duty status logs, and I'm just going to choose last month, and the driver I'm going to choose is Jane Doe. I will apply the changes, and here I have a list of all of my duty status change, and it will tell me everything that's gone through. And back up at the top here, you will also see, here's your compliance print. So everything is listed right, and this is your default reports. There's no tricks to it. You don't have to really identify anything other than the driver you're looking for and the time frame you're looking for. Anything that is checkmarked, again, it has been verified and it would show up as a compliance print. If you wanted to see your availability report, again, as mentioned, it is just part of your preview features that is set up as the user. If you turn that on, you would then see that report. So what I've given you is a basic overview of all of the reports we have available, how they are used, what they can be used for, where you find them, when you export them to Excel, what it includes, and keep in mind that if it's in the Data tab, you can certainly pull it and then make it customized. Okay, with that, I thank you so much for coming. We will see you next week with our 5 pillars, and we will sign off. Thanks again.